Hey DJ, how is it going?
Good. Keep it on blending with my blender.
So, you still play with your little blender toy?
It's not a toy anymore, man. It's now toys for the big boys. You missed out on a lot of stuff.
Like what? Adding Peggy 12 to the splash screen?
You talk the talk, but do you walk the walk? You ever dance with the devil in the moonlight?
You want to dance with me? I'm ready, let's dance.
Okay then, so it's on. It's on!
It's on, man. It's on.
A typical image of some deep discussion between Blender and 3ds Max users, isn't it? DJ and Andrew met to perform a Saber's duel, where thank God they were arrested.
Please, this is the police, don't move.
And then bailed by our academy. After consideration, they have decided to finish their skirmish by creating Among Us game illustration. Which software is better? You decide.
So let's add the cube and subdivide it a bit. That's nice. Now just using the knife tool, I'll cut this thing into halves on the bottom to create the legs. Now a crease and inserting those with individual, and I have 2 legs. Now I just want to get rid of these small faces here, so I'll just collapse by distance and boom, strange things happen.
Okay, so I started from importing the reference and I'm polymodeling the character with symmetry modifier and turbo smooth applied. I'm adding more edges to create the legs and fine-tune the silhouette of the astronaut. Here go the legs. The character is cartoony, so I will use every feature I can find on the reference to add more detail to the model. So I'm looking for the shape, trying to make it as close to the reference as I can.
Now I'll just keep this thing symmetric to avoid future problems. I'll just adjust the proportions a bit and add some creases on the bottom to make the legs a bit more square shaped and make the goggles as a separate mesh, just picking a few faces on the front of it. Now I'll just extrude that and introduce a little bit of a trick here, giving this a Google edge vertex groups and attaching it with a shrink wrap modifier using that vertex group so the goggles stick. And of course it's kind of resolution dependent.
I have this very rough shape. On the reference, the torso is casting a shadow on itself at the bottom, suggesting that the astronaut has some belly hanging out. So I'm adding this belly. I'm trying to make the model look as similar as possible to the reference. So it's a simple model. I think it's a good example for beginners to learn the basics of polymodeling. That should be around the tip of his head. Now the backpack. I'm adding some details so it gets smooth in a nice way. And adding some more lines to make the roundness a little sharper. But it's a little too sharp, so it's more round here and shorter.
Now just the backpack as a basic cube with some creases should be enough to beat that 3ds Max imposter. Blender power, hey? Now let's introduce a simple rig to make this small dude move a bit, so just a few bones, one for the head and one for the leg, should be enough. And I'll give you a little secret here. If you name the bones correctly, like left.leg for example, you can just symmetrize the whole armature and it creates the right bones for you. Automatic weights works quite fine, but I want to tweak the weights a bit with hand painting. So let's first apply the basic subdivision so that we have some vertices to paint on.
I'm aligning the backpack to the astronaut model with the align tool. The backpack has this element hanging out in the middle of the reference. It's just 1 pixel, but I will add a strip going around the backpack based on this information. So I'm using any info from reference as I can. So I'm extruding the strip and adding more subdivisions to make it sharper. Tweaking the details. And now align the shape of the backpack to the astronaut's back, so it's not stiffly attached to his back. Also, I'm modifying his back a little bit, so it's shorter. Okay, somebody's coming, disconnecting.
Now let's paint the legs to just be the legs, not the rest of the body. Right, the same for the second leg. Just smooth the weights a bit in the end. And there we go. We can smooth it out a bit. And it should work fine. Yeah, I like these little legs moving. Now just make some little adjustments to the suit to make it look a little bit like cloth. And let's use some blender power for that. Using the simple modeling techniques and some cloth simulation as well. So right now we can inflate that little balloon. And how about using just some random fall off for the proportional? And once I keyframe some movement for the legs, it should update and just make it move slowly, so that Blender won't go crazy. And also the sculpting in Blender will have some nice tools for us here. So using the new cloth brush tool just to get some wrinkles on the sides.
Now I'm creating the suit's visor. It's an easy thing to do, but I will also try to match it to the reference. So on the reference you can see that the astronaut stands at some angle to us, so we see him in a front view, like half front view, half side view. So this element sticking on the right is telling how it's how it's going to look from the side. So I'll try to mirror that shape. And I'm putting together the whole suit. And I created this line to make the seal of the visor. I'm adjusting it to the intersection of the visor and the spacesuit. I'm doing it manually. I think I could use a boolean action to create this line, but this way is fine as well. So the astronaut is ready.
Takes a little bit getting used to get what you want. Now that's a wrinkly little fellow. Okay, I can just tweak this forever. Just a little bit is enough, I think, to sell the idea. Now we can take care for the colors. So let's give it some materials. I don't really want the suit to be that kind of a plain plastic, so let's give it some bump. And I'll use a noise texture for that. Or maybe a musgraph.
I'm setting up the camera and general composition. I decided to make it vertical, and in general it will be a symmetrical composition. I will break the symmetry with some additional elements. I wanted to avoid creating the whole spaceship interior, so the camera is outside and it's going to look into the spaceship interior. This is going to be the wall of the spaceship. I'm cutting out a circle hole for a window. There are many ways to do it in 3ds Max, but I think in this case it's the simplest way. I'm scaling it up now and extruding it to 3D. This is going to be a glass window, and I'm going to find some cool space environment map to be reflected in it. So I decided that it's going to be a hemisphere, so we'll get some cool reflections of the space in the glass. I'm adding a shell modifier to add thickness to the glass, collapsing it to editable poly. And I will cap it so it's a closed 3D object.
A little bit of a color ramp, and let's go to cycles to really see how it looks like. Yeah, I think musgraph texture will be better. Just crank up the scale, just to introduce some little bumps on the surface. And let's make it subtle so that it doesn't spoil the whole effect. Yeah, that's kind of a more interesting surface. Now let's give the guy a hat to make him unique. Almost more unique than a pink flamingo. So let's give him let's create the head as well. We might use the bull. We might use the loop tools for that. So it's all vanilla Blender, but some add-ons need to be enabled. Yeah. Just take care for the proportions and extrude this little fellow's face.
I added astronauts' bodies floating around. They will make the composition less symmetrical and add some story to the image, based on the game. And now I'm working on the interior of the spaceship. It's going to have a corridor disappearing in the darkness. These spheres are going to be asteroids. For now I'm creating just placeholder spheres to find a good locations for them. And I'm adding some more spaceship elements to break the symmetry and add some more interesting parts. Now I'm fine-tuning the placement of the elements in the shot, so the composition looks cool according to my guts, just to make it balanced. And some quick test render. I found this environment map on the website cubebrush.co, and I didn't want to use paid assets so DJ wouldn't accuse me of cheating, but it was cheap so I just bought it. So DJ, consider yourself backstabbed. I used some textures from texture.com, and they have many cool textures for sci-fi. These are substance ready materials, but you can also download just textures. I use this map for backpack displacement. Now I'm creating the shaders. I'm starting from simple colors and settings. I like to create images in passes, so this is going to be the first pass of materials settings. And with another iterations I will add more and more detail. So now I'm creating the environment light with the HDR map I mentioned. It's a very cool map, sci-fi, like space but stylized, so it fits perfectly here. And a test render.
Well, let's make it pink. And just make a mouth for him. And I think moving this down a bit should help make it look flamingo-ish. Let's give it a different material so we can have some eyes and mouth in a black color. Let's just extrude it. Use the loop tools again, circle. Yeah, probably could be done a bit more efficiently, but it's fast anyway. Yeah, kinda like that. Don't you like the look of that flamingo? Now let's just create some duplicates. And our little guys are sprouting all over our scene, and let's create the scene out of this.
I'm adding basic render elements. It's less for post-production and more for inspecting the quality of the shaders, like reflections and refractions, the noise. Now I'm adding lights to the interior, a regular one over the astronaut's head and two red ones from the sides to add more dramatic mood. Setting the floor and the ceiling to black. I was thinking about some lighting on the ceiling, but it didn't work out very well, so that black ceiling is going to cut out the character in the middle. I wanted to create some kind of electronics, computer screens inside, and it would take me a lot of time to model and texture them, so I found a very cool textures on textures.com, and I'll just cut it as I need it. So at first I was planning to use them as very light material, but the diffuse was enough. They have already some glowing effect. Now I'm adding some bump to the metal shell of the spaceship. It's also a texture from textures.com. And running a test. And mapping the backpack.
If you need some extra rendering power, You can take a look on our GarageFarm.net render farm, where we provide top quality CPU and GPU rendering services in best prices on the market. Using coupon code visible in our video cards and video descriptions, you can register and get $50 totally free render credits. Type the code in proper place while registering, create an account and test our render farm for free. Happy rendering!
Let's create some environment. A spaceship. You can do that really fast in Blender. Just scale, subdivide, extrude. There we got a corridor. Now let's make a hole here, so that we can see some corridor in the back. Some extrusions, some beveling. To make it look more sci-fi-ish. Sometimes you need to correct the topology. And sometimes it's easier to split things into separate objects. I'll make a door out of this, but let's not make it that simple. Yeah, this is more sci-fi looking. Okay, so let the door open and let's create the corridor as well. So copy this, separate object, let's make a module. Let this be a light fixture on the walls, and let's create a crate. So I'll do that by just subdividing this and applying a wireframe modifier to the whole thing, and boom, we have a crate. Maybe a denser one. Yep. Now an array modifier for this and for the whole module as well. And I'll create these crates as well for the floor in the foreground. So this needs some array modifier. Maybe a light emission shader here.
I will add the material structure to the backpack. It will be quilted and I will achieve it by displacement. So first I'm setting it as a diffuse to check the mapping. I will use the same mapping for the displacement. I'm reducing the intensity of the red lights. So I'm looking for some balanced ratio here. The ejected guys will be frozen in space. So I'm going to use a frost texture and use V-Ray blend material. I'll use a frost texture as a diffuse, reflection, glossy and bump, and as a mask to mix with the plastic of the spacesuit or fabric. This is how it's going to look like. I want the frost to be more matte and the fabric of the spacesuit to be more shiny, so I'm modifying the glossiness in V-Ray material settings. And in general, I'm not unwrapping the UVWs on any of the models. I'm just finding one of the standard UVW mapping shapes like box or sphere, and I'm playing around with the placement till the texture seams are not visible. And so in this case it's enough, I think. So another pass is done. I'm continuing the work, knowing that the other guy is on my back.
Let me just adjust the front of the spaceship. Some corrections. Yeah, just how lovely it is that it's so procedural with the modifiers. So I can just correct the base mesh of the crate. I can even adjust it to fit with the geometry of my spaceship. Use some snapping here. Alright, it didn't come out super evenly, these subdivisions, so I'll just quickly correct this. Sliding the vertices. And now it's nice and tidy. Why not extrude these faces a bit? So make these kind of indents for our crates, and the other ones, let's make them tile. Now to make the whole sci-fi thing go well, let's add some smoke and like vapor, just to make some mood. Quick effects is just enough for that in Blender. Just introduce some variations, not to make this whole thing too uniform. Boom. Yeah, you know, these simulations always take some time tweaking. I just don't want to overdo this, because time's running out, and I guess that 3ds Max guy is treading on my feet.
I can smell smoke. I'll turn off the diffuse lighting of the Cosmos Dome map, but leave it visible in reflections. In space there's no GI, so the shadows should be black, but I want something to be visible in the shadows at least a little, and the Cosmos reflection looks cool. I'll reduce the reflection of the shiny glassy dome on the bottom of the ship, and now I'm tweaking the frost material. I want it to be lighter and crisper. So I want to just make sure that I have the maps in the right slots. And now I'm uploading the scene to render it in high resolution on the farm, so I will have my image back quickly. So this is a quick process. I'm going to render in strips mode on multiple computers. And now I'm in Photoshop. I will get rid of this weird reflection on the glass. I'm using helium brush, and I will paint it over with some dark blue. I had a problem with getting rid of it in the render. This is some kind of internal refraction or reflection in the glass, so I decided to do it in post-production.
Let's call it OK, and let's copy this simulation to the other parts and just rotate it to make it seem like it's a different one. This kind of cheating is allowed. Alright, so that's nice looking, although the volumetrics take some time to render, really. Yeah, but I like the mood it introduces. Let's just make the scene a bit darker. So I guess we have to take care for the material of our spaceship. I'm sure that it needs to be metallic, but it also needs some surface variation, so I'll just try to make something like a galvanized steel or so. So Voronoi texture is just perfect for that. Just let's make the details really small and with a tiny bit of bump. Right now it just goes too far, so let's make it subtle. Alright, it already looks better. And let the crates have a bit of a difference there as well. So instead of Voronoi, I'll use a noise here.
Finishing the painting here. It looks okay. I'm adding a vignette. I applied autotone and autocolor, so I have a different color version which is light and enlarged bluish, and I will mix it with the original color version to find a look I'm happy with. I'll modify the levels to make sure my deepest shadows are black and the brightest light is white. And I'm adding a glare lens effect. I will play around with brightness, contrast and blending mode to get the result I want.
Now let's add the guy a hand, so that he can't really be caught red-handed. Although the hand will not really be red, but the blood will. I'll just use metaballs for getting the basic shape of the hand. Once I'm happy with the base mesh, I'll just convert it to a mesh and remesh it in the sculpt mode. Just give it some more resolution and smooth it out with smoothing vertices. Now we have something to sculpt with. Inflate brush, smooth brush. And the really neat thing is that I can pose the hand with a pose brush in the end. I want this to hold the knife. So let's make the knife.
I'll erase part of the glare so it mixes better with the background. Adjust the color a little. Look into the mirror, an old trick from the times I draw with a pencil to have a fresh look. And I'll increase the saturation of the red spacesuit. I'm using Replace Color tool in Photoshop.
Grab brush, the inflate brush. I'll just make the hand to be kind of like cartoony. Let's make the pose a bit more dynamic. That's okay. Now let's take care for the materials. This one can be the same as the suit, and the knife needs a steel metallic one and something else for the handle. I'll just use the same pink one as for the flamingo. Let's keep things simple. I'll just copy a bit of this mesh and randomize it a bit. And this will be some blood. Why not use a shrink wrap modifier for that one? Yeah, so that it fits the shape of our edge blade. Just some corrections to make it look less uniform. Let's make some droplets as well.
Somebody got stabbed. I'll darken the shadow on the red astronaut. And make the frost lighter.
Yeah, just some random faces there, and now some sculpting as well. Alright, so let's make it kind of splashy. Like a puddle of blood. Remesh that again. Do some minor corrections. Just take your time and have fun with getting the shape. Maybe it would be better if I had some reference, but I'm just trying out my skill here. Yeah, some subdivision might help make it smoother, and I think it's okay. Now let's make it fit the ground, and let's give the blood the red material. Yeah, it's kind of looking already creepy. So if the guy has blood on his knife, there must be someone who's the victim.
The frost is lighter now. And I'll get rid of a texture seam on the green guy. So I think it's ready. Time to see what the other agent did.
Keyframe these positions and render out the final frame of the sequence. Alright. And that is our final render. Pretty happy with it. I wonder what that 3ds Max guy did for the competition.
Take one. Yo DJ, what's up?
Yo Andrew, it's cool. It was a tough one, but it was fun.
Yeah, so very learning experience. I defeated you as it was supposed to be, but I must say I learned some respect to Blender. I've seen how you've been working on it, and yeah, it's a very robust tool. Like, I had the impression that basically you were doing several actions like in a row, without clicking through options, and also other features like this live preview. This is a powerful thing. Like, you can doodle and play around. So, well, I take back some of my cockiness, like 50%.
Yeah, so you said you defeated me, but you really cheated because you used not just 3ds Max, but you used Photoshop. So it's kind of, two softwares against one. And I really, but in the end I find that your image was looking better because you really planned out the whole process, and you had this post-production phase, which is kind of crucial to make the image pop. So I could have maybe used the Blender Compositor or anything to just do some post-production. And I think that you also used quite a lot of photo textures in your work, which I think could have helped me get better results as well. But I maybe tried to do that everything in Blender as I go. So
yeah, I mean, like the very simple post-production just takes like 2 minutes. So I think you could do this, and Also, I would, when it comes to your image, I liked it, but the only thing I would change was the composition, because it was kind of random. It was like, looked like a frame from a bigger sequence, like a movie frame, and this is a still image, so I think it could be more, there could be a more hierarchy to it, and maybe some like comics like camera placement. So yeah, but for example, I've seen the rigging and I liked it. I mean, you said that basically you can create this rig and start posing the character. So in 3ds Max I would have to learn rigging. I think it would take me more time to achieve a level where I can use it to pose these characters. And I have an impression that in Blender it's you start learning and you quickly have some working results. And I like learning this way because you don't have to go through this grinding phase before you start to create something. So this is also another props for Blender.
Yeah, I think it's a cool all-around tool that you have all those different workspaces, and you can quickly iterate on different ideas and use different tools for like small pieces of the workflow. And I find that this whole match turned out to be like the final effect was more dependent on the kind of workflow that we chose for the whole project than the software itself. Really, you could pull both of those artworks in 3ds Max or Blender anyways, just like approaching it. We were approaching it differently, so it kind of had different results in the end. Yeah, and I think like your composition is really spot on, and you kind of like seem to have it planned out beforehand.
Yeah.
Like, when you started, you just thought about the final image, and I was more like experimenting along the way and like developing the concept in the process. So, and yeah, maybe just missed a few minutes more on finding that perfect shot, or maybe laying out the final image.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a choice. I had to do this that way for many reasons. Like, I didn't want to take, we had a time constraint, so I didn't want to spend I was afraid mostly about modeling the interior of the spaceship. So this is why I did it that way. And also, I am used to this workflow from even times where the rendering was slower, so I couldn't just test parts of the image like and tweak the shaders. I always had to do it in passes. So first I would drop the very general materials, then another pass is more textures, more detail, and render the test of the whole image with all these changes. So that was imposed on me because it was especially with deadlines, it was the best workflow. So looking at Blender and this real-time preview, I would definitely try to some procedural thing. I think this is very good for procedural rendering and workflow, because you can see the effect in real time. So there's a lot of space to play around. If you don't have to run tests and wait for rendering.
Yeah, and I guess that's in every software it's kind of like going in this direction, that you have this interactive preview, and you can just experiment and check things as you go.
Yeah, it didn't help you too much, but it's it was nice to put you in the right place. And I think this is one of the biggest upsides of this match, that we don't have any any doubts about the rank.
That's like your opinion, man, but let's hear what the audience has to say. And I'm pretty sure that despite you having this proprietary software backup and this support or whatever you have, I have, like, behind my back I have all this Blender cult to support me. So Blender cultists, go and destroy the man in the comments. So
yeah, you have your minions, and I'm a little afraid. I shouldn't have been so cocky, I think. I will get punished. So
Let the flame war start.
yeah, guys, tell us what you think about both workflows, both softwares and our works. Who won? And I guess I will be the gentleman, and we'll make a rematch after some time.
Yeah. Or let's do a tag team match with some Cinema 4D guide. Or
Yeah, that would be cool. To compare all these three softwares, that would be cool.
yeah, unless we have some Houdini magician to just conquer us all. If you know.
We don't have such a guy yet. Okay, so bye guys, and DJ, don't cry at night. It's okay to lose. Okay.